Do you ever feel like your performance is going down the drain? Are you constantly thinking about food, your weight, and what your body looks like? Are you not sleeping well at all at night? These are all symptoms of female athlete triad, and in today's episode, I'm going to give you a quick screening to help you decide if you're struggling with it. I'll explain exactly what female athlete triad is, risk factors, and what to do if you think you have it. And if you're a parent listening to this for your child, this will help you to know when it's time to take action. So let's stop the guessing game on if what you're experiencing is normal, and let's dive into today's episode. Do you wish you could look like you train as much as you do? Are you sick of scouring the internet for sports nutrition tips only to find information tailored to men? Do you wish there was a simple solution to fueling your body for your activity level? Are you ready to find freedom with food? It is possible to have balance between fueling your body for your sport and for enjoyment, and it's not as complicated as you may think. Can we say hello, food freedom? There's a way to have it all and eat your cake too, and I'm going to show you how. Hey, I'm Kristen, a former multi-sport athlete, a sports dietitian, personal trainer, and Jesus lover. In this podcast, you will find practical, sustainable fueling tips for female athletes that will set you free from diet culture, an ever-changing set of nutrition rules, underfueling, and underperforming. You'll learn how to put together a fueling plan that works for you, that doesn't require all the rules, tracking every morsel of food you consume, letting food consume your every thought, with Jesus at the center of it all. If you're ready to find a sustainable nutrition plan that works for you with your active lifestyle and is tailored to your unique physiology, break free from diet culture, and finally feel comfortable in your own skin, this podcast is for you. Whip up that smoothie, lace up your shoes, and let's jump in. Okay, before we dive into if you actually have female athlete triad, let's first talk about what female athlete triad is. So as you can imagine, it's three things given the triad part of the name. So first, it's low energy availability. So basically, you have more calories going out than coming in. And this can occur if you are not consuming enough and you are exercising a lot, or it could just be that you are struggling with disordered eating, or it could be from societal pressures or other things that females tend to deal with. Secondly is menstrual dysfunction. So it doesn't have to be that you are simply not getting a period, but it could be that your periods are more than 35 days apart. That is considered a menstrual dysfunction. Or if you are an adolescent female and you're not having your periods by the age of 15, or you miss more than 3 consecutive periods, those are all considered menstrual dysfunction. And that is part of female athlete triad. The third one is bone mineral density. So altered hormone levels can cause a low bone mineral density, and that can ultimately cause you to have osteoporosis. It will first be osteopenia generally, and then turn into osteoporosis. And it does not matter what age you're at. You don't have to be an old grandma to have osteoporosis. I've actually seen it in college students. So if you are struggling with female athlete triad, you will have a low bone mineral density, which would be marked by a DEXA scan. So let's talk about what the risk factors are for female athlete triad. Number one is being a female, but that does not mean that this does not affect males. Obviously, female athlete triad is specific to females, but there is a male athlete triad, but it is going to be a little different because they're not getting their period, but it's still going to have similar symptoms. Number two is being in a sport that places a high value on aesthetics or leanness, like running or gymnastics, dance, ice skating, those types of sports. And also number three would be if you are struggling with disordered eating. All those things are going to put you at a high risk for female athlete triad. So let's talk about how you know if you have it. So number one is menstrual irregularities, like I talked about. So this would be if you are not getting a period at all, or you're getting irregular periods, or you haven't gotten your period yet and you're over the age of 15. All of those are going to be a symptom of female athlete triad. Number two is bone loss. So if you are getting stress fractures or you're breaking bones, or you've even gotten a DEXA scan and you've seen that you have low bone mineral density, that is also going to be a symptom. Number three is eating habits. So if you are limiting your food intake, you're fasting, you are using things like laxatives, or you are vomiting, or you are binging and then purging, things along those lines, those are all going to be symptoms of female athlete triad. Mental health is another one, number 4. So this can include depression, it can include anxiety, low self-esteem, even trouble concentrating. All of those things are going to point back to female athlete triad as long as you are struggling with the others. Doesn't mean if you have one, you automatically have female athlete triad, but certainly all of these things combined. Next up is your performance. So if your performance is decreasing, or you feel like you're just hitting a wall, or you just can't do it anymore, you're just not performing very well, and maybe you can't even explain it, that would be a symptom as well. Energy, you are constantly fatigued, you don't have enough energy, that's going to be a symptom. Body image, if you are preoccupied with your weight or the way that you look, or you're constantly putting yourself down saying, oh, I look fat, or I look terrible, or things along those lines, also a symptom. Last up is sleeping. So if you're not sleeping well at night, definitely a sign of female athlete triad. So I'm going to read off 10 questions from a questionnaire, which this is just a screening questionnaire for female athlete triad. And based off of your answers, if you saw a provider, they might ask you more questions, but this is just going to give you kind of a good screening tool. So these are all, most of them are yes or no questions. Number 1 is, do you worry about your weight or body composition? Yes or no. Number 2, do you limit or carefully control the foods that you eat? Yes or no. Number 3, do you try to lose weight to meet weight or image/appearance requirements in your sport? Yes or no. Number 4, does your weight affect the way you feel about yourself? Yes or no. Number 5, do you worry that you have lost control over how much you eat? Yes or no. Number 6, do you make yourself vomit, use diuretics or laxatives after you eat? Yes or no. Number 7, do you currently or have you ever suffered from an eating disorder? Yes or no. Number 8, do you ever eat in secret? Yes or no. Number 9, what age was your first menstrual period? Number 10, do you have monthly menstrual cycles? Yes or no. 11, how many menstrual cycles have you had in the last year? And 12, have you ever had a stress fracture? As you could probably tell, the more yeses that you have, the more at risk you are of female athlete triad, and then your provider would want to do some more testing or some more digging to find out if you actually have this. So really, prevention is key here. And if you are a parent listening to this thinking that your daughter or maybe even your son might be struggling with this, these are all good questions to ask yourself, and also to ask your child if they are, to see what their answers are is a good screening tool. So, like I said, prevention is really key here. And if female athlete triad is caught early, that is really the best thing. So we really want to focus on a couple things. Number 1 is proper nutrition. So making sure that you're eating a balanced diet with enough calories to match your activity level. And this is really where you would want to work with a sports nutritionist or sports dietitian to make sure that you are getting in the proper macronutrients, enough of them, and also micronutrients. Because if you go to a doctor, if you feel like you are struggling with this, they're going to want to run a bunch of labs on you, and those would include a hormone panel as well as your vitamin D levels, your iron levels. And so we want to make sure that you are getting enough of those things. Plus, when your bone mineral density decreases, you need to make sure that you're taking in enough calcium to make sure that you are filling up your bones essentially with calcium to make them stronger. So unfortunately, if you have damage to your bone mineral density, that damage is not really reversible. However, you can make sure that you're eating enough calcium to prevent further damage. However, your period, things like that, you can always get that back. So it's not like if you have female athlete triad, you're just doomed. There's lots that you can do. Next up is we really want to focus on exercise management. So we want to avoid excessive training or volume and intensity, especially if you are not having a period or it's an irregular period. So if you ever feel like I'm just really tired, then take a rest, take a few days off. You're actually shooting yourself in the foot if you just keep pushing, pushing, pushing and never giving your body what it needs. And so that brings me to my next point of adjusting your training based off of your needs. And if you feel like your coach is just pushing you, that is a time where you need to speak up for yourself and actually talk to your coach. And if your coach isn't going to listen, then you need to go to the next person in charge, or maybe that's when you need to just take a step back from that sport, as hard as that might be. Next up would be mental health support. So really making sure that you are in a situation where there's body positivity and people like your coaches, for example, or your teammates or, just friends around you are not engaging in unhealthy weight loss practices. They're not struggling with their own disordered eating. This happens with coaches where coaches have their own disordered eating and then they're portraying that onto their athletes. Or, that can just be bred into a team. I can see that very clearly when I talk to coaches and athletes from specific teams where you can see where it's a good environment versus where it's not a good environment. And if you're in a sport where it's not a good environment, that's where you need to talk to somebody, or you might just need to find a different team or find a different sport, unfortunately. If you are struggling with disordered eating or you have an excessive focus on your weight, that's where you need to get professional help. Work with a therapist, work with a sports dietitian as well, so that you are making sure that you're getting everything that you need and you're addressing that mental health aspect of things. Next is regular monitoring. We want to make sure that you are tracking your menstrual cycles and identifying any menstrual irregularities. And if you are having menstrual irregularities, that you are consulting a doctor. However, you don't want to just go on birth control, because birth control is not going to solve your problem. That's just basically putting a Band-Aid on it. When you get you're getting a period from being on birth control, that is just withdrawal from the hormones. It's not actually solving the underlying problem. So certainly get with a doctor so that they can run labs, make sure that you are not deficient in anything and that your hormone panel isn't off. But at the same time, we want to get to the root of the problem, which would be really nutrition and your training load. Also, we want to make sure that you are working with a doctor so that they can order a DEXA scan so we can get your bone mineral density tested. So that is something, if your bone mineral density is low, that we are regularly testing. So last up is education and awareness. And this is really where it's important for athletes as well as coaches and parents to know about female athlete triad, what it is, what are the signs, symptoms, and consequences of it, and also just to create a healthy environment that really prioritizes your health and well-being over just your performance. Unfortunately, I've seen it way too many times where, some coaches are so focused on performance that they are willing to sacrifice the health of the athlete. I will say that is, from my experience, not the norm. That's more the exception. Most coaches really do care about their athletes and really want them to be performing well. But if you are an athlete or a parent and you are noticing that the situation is not good, that's when you really want to either remove yourself from that situation or talk to somebody about it. So let's say you, after doing this questionnaire that I've listed off, feel like, okay, I am struggling with female athlete triad. What do I do now? Number one is get with your doctor so that your doctor can run some labs. Like I said, the hormone panel, as well as your vitamin D, your iron levels, that type of thing. And then also you want them to order a DEXA scan for you so you can get a reading on your bone mineral density. Next up is to meet with a sports dietitian like myself. A sports dietitian is crucial in female athlete triad because so much of it relies on nutrition. If your nutrition is not supporting what you're doing with your training, this can easily spiral out of control. So this is your invitation. If you are struggling with female athlete triad, or maybe you're not even fully there yet, maybe you're just struggling with some disordered eating or this preoccupation with your weight or body or whatever, or maybe you're just confused on how to put together a balanced diet, this is your invitation to reach out to me. Let's schedule a call so that I can help you. So go to my website, elitenutritionandperformance.com/consult, and you can schedule a free consultation with me, and we can kind of get the ball rolling on all of that. I'll drop that link below for you. Last up is to adjust your training. This is really important as well, and I know that this is probably the hardest part because most people don't want to cut back on their training, but if you are pushing your body too hard, I promise that your body will just rebel against you. It is not going to work. It's kind of like your car. If you're not doing regular maintenance on your car, you're not changing the oil in your car, you're not giving it gas, you're not giving it enough gas, it's not going to make it where it needs to be, and eventually your car is going to break down on you, and your body is the same way. So make sure that you are adjusting your training. Now, like I said, if you are struggling with any of these things, this is your invitation. Please reach out. Let's set up a call. Just head on over to elitenutritionandperformance.com/consult, and we can schedule a time where we can talk, find out where you're struggling, and then from there, I can tell you how I can help you, and we can get everything set up for you. Hey friend, if this podcast inspired you, encouraged you, or changed you, I would love for you to leave me a review and share it with a girlfriend who will find it helpful or inspiring. That is the best way you can thank me and help me share my knowledge so I can help more people just like you. I'm so thankful that you spent this time with me today, and I'd love to connect with you. Join my Facebook group, Female Sports Nutrition, or send me a DM on Instagram, or hop on over to my website, elitenutritionperformance.com. I'll see you back here next week.